The Kansas City Chiefs have now won 2 Super Bowls in the past 4 years and are now looking to go back to back in 2023. To start this offseason, the Chiefs obviously didn't have to do too much in order to improve this roster coming off a championship. However, the good thing is there's always a way to slightly get better even when you win the Super Bowl. In this video, I'll be breaking down everything that the Chiefs have done this offseason and what they need to do next in order to win back-to-back Super Bowls in 2023. However, before we jump into the video, make sure you guys smash that like button. It helps out the channel so much, so let's see if we can get the video up to 200 likes. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I will be covering the Chiefs and the rest of the NFL all year long, so join the family for more breaking news NFL content going forward. And one last thing, comment down below, who do you believe is the most underrated player on this Chiefs team right now? In my opinion, I think it's going to be Sky Moore. I think he's going to have a breakout year, and I'll tell you more about it in later in the video. But without any further ado, let's jump into the video. So before we dive in all the signings that the Chiefs have made so far this offseason, let's take a look back at 2022 and see where the Chiefs maybe needed to improve coming into the offseason. Now, let's start with the offense. Offensively, you can't get any better than the Kansas City Chiefs. In 2022, the Chiefs ranked in the top 2 of pretty much every single category, which is absurd. Ranking number 1 in points per game, number 1 in yards per game, number 1 in yards per play, number 2 in third down conversion percentage, number 2 in fourth down conversion percentage, number 2 in red zone scoring, and number 2 in touchdowns per game. I mean, god damn, the amount of top 2s they have is absolutely incredible. And I mean, truly, just incredible numbers. And when you have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, you'll be in contention to win the Super Bowl every single year. In my opinion, Patrick Mahomes might be the only quarterback that can compete for that GOAT tag in the NFL. Now, I don't want to put too much pressure on him, but if he continues on this path that he's going on right now, watch out, Tom Brady, because Mahomes, he's coming. Now, the Chiefs had one of the best passing attacks all year in the NFL, ranking number 4 in completion percentage, number 1 in yards per pass, number 1 in pass yards per game, number 7 in interception thrown, and number 2 in sack percentage. Compared to their underwhelming rushing stats, which they ranked number 20 in rushing yards per game and number 10 in rushing touchdowns per game, which honestly, when you look at it, it's not that bad. But when you have such a dominant passing attack, you're going to want to utilize that as much as possible. So even though the Chiefs' running game wasn't as good as it could have been, it doesn't really matter when you take a step back and just really look at it. One thing I will say though, Isaiah Pacheco, dude, he is insanely talented and passes the eye test every time he touches the football. He also is making a name for himself and can easily become one of the NFL's next great running backs. I truly see that out of him. You can look at the way he plays, carries the football. This dude can absolutely be amazing. And I'm just talking about from the standpoint of watching him play. He just looks so good every time the ball is in his hands. Now, before we jump into their defensive numbers, let's check out some of the Chiefs signings offensively. Now, the Chiefs brought in a couple of guys, including La'Mical Perine, and they also signed John Ross a couple of weeks before free agency to a reserve future contract. Now, obviously, they haven't added too much, to be fair. They don't really need to. La'Mical Perine will come in. He'll replace Ronald Jones, who ended up signing with the Dallas Cowboys, and John Ross will just add more depth and speed at the wide receiver position going forward. But however, they did make a couple of big splashes on the offensive line. The first big move was signing Jawaan Taylor. Now, obviously, with Orlando Brown leaving the free agency, their biggest hole in the offense was offensive line. And they brought in a very good one here in Jawaan Taylor. The former Jacksonville Jaguar will come in right away and be a starting tackle for the Chiefs. And this is going to be a huge pickup. I think that, honestly, this is going to be massive. He's going to come in right away and be a bona fide starter at left tackle, protecting the blind side of Patrick Mahomes. They also brought in free agent guard Nick Allegretti, who will also add some physicality and some depth to the offensive line. I think it's much needed, and maybe even they need to bring in a couple of more offensive linemen, within the next couple of weeks. So far, I do love what the Chiefs have done, and I'm excited for the growth of some of these wide receivers, especially Sky Moore. Obviously, with Juju and Mecole Hardman out the door, it opens up so much more playing time for a guy like Sky to come in and step up, become the player they wanted him to be when they drafted him in the second round in the 2022 NFL Draft. A breakout year is coming for Sky Moore. And then when you look at the overall wide receiver room, you got Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling at wide receiver. They do have some other guys like Justin Ross coming back from injury, and Cornell Powell, Amir Smith-Marset, John Ross. But I do think they need to add more depth at the position. I don't know how many guys you can trust in that second unit to come in here and just be, solid wide receivers. Obviously, they can develop, but I definitely would like them to add maybe one or two more wide receivers that have, some experience in the league that could just come in and be, solid depth pieces. Now, before we jump into the Chiefs, into where the Chiefs improved the most, make sure you guys smash that like button if you're enjoying the video so far. Subscribe if you're new. I will be covering the entire NFL offseason, which includes free agency, the draft, trades, whatever goes down in the NFL. I got you guys covered, so join the family. Okay, so like we do with the offense, let's jump into the defensive numbers for the Kansas City Chiefs. In 2022, the Chiefs defense actually wasn't amazing, and they had a decent amount of work to do to start free agency. The Chiefs ranked number 18 in points allowed per game, number 14 in yards allowed per game, number 22 in third down conversion, number 24 in fourth down conversion, and number 28 in red zone scoring, and number 20 in touchdowns allowed per game. So obviously, they were ranking in the bottom half of almost every single defensive category last season. And as we all can tell, work was needed to be done. But let's take a deeper look at where the defense struggled the most. To be fair, the Chiefs played well in terms of stopping the run, ranking number 4 in rush attempts allowed, number 8 in rushing yards allowed per game, and number 12 in rushing touchdowns allowed. However, their passing defense struggled a lot, and that was their main area of concern coming into the offseason. Ranking number 22 in opposing completion percentage, number 20 in opposing passing yards per game, and number 22 in interception percentage. With that being said, the only reason why these numbers look comparably bad to the rushing numbers is because teams would go down early in the games and be forced to pass the ball way more. And that's just what happens when your offense is so good. You get early leads, and the other team, the opposing team, needs to catch up. They play catch up for pretty much 2 quarters or 3 quarters on. But that's honestly kind of a good thing. But coming into the offseason, the Chiefs need to build a secondary and improve in their passing defense. But their overall biggest need was safety. The good news is that the Chiefs made a great signing, bringing in former Tampa Bay Buccaneers safety Mike Edwards. The 26-year-old safety is joining forces with Justin Reid in that safety room, and will add a lot to the secondary. In his 4-year career, he's put up 184 tackles, 125 of those were solo. He also has 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 7 interceptions in just 4 years. And like I said earlier, the Chiefs don't force a ton of interceptions, and Mike Edwards is a guy, a playmaker who come in here and just be a great addition from day one on. Like I said, I love this addition. You look at their secondary right now, you see Justin Reid, Mike Edwards, L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson. There is some work to be done, but I do like the secondary right now. The Chiefs also are letting go of Frank Clark, replacing him with Charles Omenihu, the former San Francisco 49er defensive end. And the reason I like this so much is because he's going to come over here, and he's also coming, which I think this is going to be very underrated by. He's coming over from the 49ers. And the 49ers, as we all know, have been one of the best defenses over the past couple of years now. And I think he's going to come over and instill that type of mindset, bring that type of culture over here to this Kansas City defensive line, which I think will just be amazing. He's going to bring in competitiveness and overall knowledge to the team. Charles Omenihu is actually coming off a very solid season as a rotational pass rusher for the 49ers, putting up 20 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble for them. The defensive line is starting to look really good right now, and I expect them once again to be great at getting to the quarterback in 2023. You got the youngin in George Karlaftis. You got Derek Nnadi coming back, Chris Jones, and now Charles Omenihu, shaping out that defensive line, and it looks really good. But they didn't stop there. They also signed former Chargers linebacker Drew Tranquill. And although he won't come in and be a day one starter for them, he's going to provide much needed depth at the position like behind guys like Willie Gay and Nick Bolton. Drew is honestly coming off a career year as well, so the Chiefs aren't getting just a backup linebacker. They're getting a guy who could come in and make big-time plays. In 2022, Drew had 146 tackles, 95 of those were solo, 5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. And the Chiefs also added former Patriot defensive end Byron Cowart as well, adding some more depth on the defensive line with guys like Danny Shelton, Treshawn Wharton, Mike Dana, and Malik Herring. I think this defensive line is deep, and I think they're overall just getting better as time goes on. Now, overall, I'm liking this offseason for the Chiefs, but they still have places to improve. Their biggest need coming into the offseason was offensive line, wide receiver, and safety. And I feel like they've done a pretty good job adding to their offensive line and, getting a starting safety, but there's still so much work to do. In terms of what they need to do next, they need to add wide receiver depth. That is a big hole going forward they need to fill. Maybe add another running back late in the draft. You got Isaiah Pacheco, you got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and LaMichael Pirine, but only having 3 running backs is not enough. You need to add more in free agency or even the draft going forward. There's definitely some late guys in the draft coming up that they could snag, so expect them to do that as well. But also, they need to go out defensively and bring in some defensive back help, cornerback, nickel, safety. Definitely needs some work. When you take a look at this DB core, you see the starting lineup of Trent McDuffie. You got L'Jarius Sneed. You got Jalen Watson, which is fine. That's fine, right? But after that, it gets a little scary. You got Nazeeh Johnson. You got Joshua Williams and DiCaprio Boodle. Listen, they need to add to the secondary. Like we said earlier, their secondary wasn't the best last year. They need to put in some more work. They need to bring in some more players in the secondary. There's still some guys available in free agency like Adrian Amos. You got Marcus Peters. There's still guys available for them to go out and get. But I do expect them to come out in the draft and bring in some more guys. And then at safety, you got Justin Reed. He's your only strong safety on the roster right now. You got Mike Edwards, who's probably going to come in and be that day one starter at free safety. And then Brian Cook, the former second-round pick last year. But like I said, definitely have to come out and bring in some more, depth in this DB room. Now, let me know in the comment section who you want the Chiefs to go out and target next, either in free agency or in the draft, which is just a month away. So let me know what you guys think. Subscribe, smash the like button, join the family, and I will see you guys in the next video.